Hello everyone and welcome to my What If series. This is my What If Deku Turned Evil Part 7. But let's get to the video.
Body, baby, show me.
In the last episode, Deku, trying to get revenge on Shigaraki, ended up losing both of his quirks back to All for One. In the last hope to become a great hero and become better than All Might, Deku asked the UA's principal to give him 2 months to try and show them that he can still become a great hero, even after losing his powers. After almost 2 months had passed, Deku, in a last attempt to get a little stronger, he trained like crazy, to the point of pure exhaustion. But, in the last attempt, while he was training against the dummy, Deku fainted after sending the dummy flying and crashing into the wall. Deku then woke up in the infirmary. All Might was by his side. He had asked him what had happened. Why was he in the infirmary? After All Might answered that Deku was found unconscious on the floor next to the place where he was training. After that, they didn't know anything else. They were waiting to see what had happened in the hidden cameras. While Deku was resting, Eraser had talked to All Might about the video footage. They had seen Deku punch the dummy against the wall. They couldn't believe their eyes. All Might knew that All for One had taken Deku's quirks back. So, how was Deku able to punch the dummy with that amount of strength? From what All Might knew, once All for One had taken someone's quirk away, they would never be able to use that quirk again. So this event was really odd for All Might. This shouldn't be possible. When Deku woke up, the principal and All Might were next to him. They told Deku that they didn't know what had happened, but somehow his body had recovered his quirks back. But it wasn't like before. Deku wasn't even 1% of the strength he had before. Even after hearing this, Deku smiled, and with a low voice, he said to himself, "I will kill you, Shigaraki." Some time had passed, and Deku was still not able to fully control his powers. He still was only able to use around 1 or 2% of his late power, but he couldn't activate it like before. He was having a hard time to be able to control his powers. But the time had come for the UA Sports Festival. Deku was still under surveillance from the UA teachers, especially All Might, since Deku had connections with All for One, but Deku was still free to do what he wanted. Deku was still attending classes. No one from Class 1A knew what had happened with Deku and All for One. Everything was still confidential. Then, everything went just like in the anime. All the students got in the stadium, and the first battle was the obstacle course, which, as we all know, it was hard for Deku in the anime, especially in the beginning, where the big robots were. Deku can't control his powers. He can only use 1 or 2% of his power, which is not good for Deku. So Deku only used his power when he really felt he could. So the race starts. And Deku starts with a big jump ahead of everyone. He went straight past the giant robots. While just seconds later, Todoroki throws them and runs after Deku, followed by the Bakugo. Deku was falling behind. Both Todoroki and Bakugo were now passing him. As Deku was falling behind, Bakugo was getting really angry. He was getting more and more pissed at Deku. Deku, who had threatened to kill Bakugo, was now mocking him? If he really was that powerful, then why wasn't Deku using it? Deku's stamina was running low. It was nothing like before. But this rage was filling Deku's heart. How could I have fallen so low? How could I have become so weak when I was so close to become the most powerful person of the world? While Deku was thinking this, Deku fell from the power turning off. He couldn't get up. His body was so tired, and so Deku got knocked out. After waking up, Deku was once again in the infirmary. Recovery Girl was happy to see Deku waking up. He had fallen asleep in the middle of the course, but somehow he had made it into the top 10 of the run. Deku was confused. What do you mean top 10? Didn't I lose from falling asleep in the middle of the race? Recovery Girl then told Deku that somehow, while Deku was asleep, for some reason his body kept going. While not being able to catch to the first places, Deku was still able to get the 10th place in the run. Deku was surprised by that, but he was happy that he fought a little more. He believed his mother was by his side, and that it was his mother who kept him going. Some time had passed. The UA festival had ended. While everyone had gotten back to the normal classes, Deku was still uncomfortable, especially because it was time for the first internship and everyone but Deku had gotten a recommendation. Still, Deku wasn't sad. He knew that his past actions would impact his future, but he didn't know it would impact as much. Still, he already knew what he had to do. He had to train even harder than before. This time, Deku wanted to be prepared for everything, and so Deku took all the time he had to train. He spent day and night training, but something was still off. While Deku was always training, he had felt a presence of someone watching him all the time. Deku had had enough, and so he jumped at the person who was watching him, finding All Might hiding behind the bushes. Deku asked All Might what he wanted, and why was he watching him all the time. He was still inside the school properties, so there was no need for him to be watching him. All Might explained that he wanted to see Deku's own growth. All Might wanted to repay Deku for helping against Nomu. He wanted to say sorry about telling him that he couldn't have become a hero. Deku refused to accept his apologies. He knew that All Might made the mistake before, and it was a mistake that Deku shouldn't have ever heard. All Might still asked to help Deku out. He could get him a place for him to do an internship. This startled Deku. How could All Might even do anything good for him? This must be a joke. There's no way he could get him an internship. Still, Deku asked All Might what he was talking about. How could he get him an internship, since no one had asked for him in the UA festival? All Might then started to explain that he had someone who was his descendant that could get him to enter the place he is in his internship. Deku didn't understand. All Might never had any children. How could he have descendants? But Deku was still curious about what All Might had offered him. So, he accepted All Might's offer, but he had one condition, and that condition was for All Might to fight him. Deku wanted to test his power. All Might then told Deku that he couldn't fight much more, but he asked Deku if he would accept a battle between Deku and his descendant. Deku hesitated, but he accepted this request, and All Might told Deku that he was going to ask for the school's help to make this battle possible. The next day, Deku had got a message about where and when the fight was going to be done. This made Deku really fired up, and the first thing he did was testing how much power he could bring out for now. Okay, so let's remember this happened around 1 week after the UA tournament, right? So Deku had a full week to train even more. Deku was now able to bring about 6% of the power he had before. What I want to add right now is that Deku's 100% before would be around All Might's 140% at his prime. So this Deku was stronger than the one in the series, who could use 5%. Also, this Deku also has the ability to absorb the damage from his own quirk and the ones that surround him. This means that our Deku would be able to absorb most of the damage from the enemies, and also if his body went over the 6% he is able to use right now, he would still be fine to use it, since he can withstand the damage. Okay, so that same morning, Deku was heading towards the UA arena, but for some reason, Deku was feeling that something was off. He entered the arena, and the stadium was full. The crowd was screaming like crazy, but Deku was confused. Why were there so many heroes on the crowd? Yet, on the arena, All Might was the presenter, and was now calling the fighters. Everyone, welcome to UA's Battle of the Future. In this arena, we will see a fight like never before. On one side, the youngster who wants to become the strongest of them all, and the best hero there ever was, Midoriya Izuku! And on the other side, the man with the power of 1,000,000 suns, the youngster who has inherited All Might's will, Togata Mirio! Deku looked at Mirio and felt the same power he had once felt from All Might. So this is the descendant of All Might. I can feel the same power from him. Those students entered the ring. All Might stood between them and then said, "Young students, don't forget to fight with all your might. But be fair to one another, let's not play any tricks, okay?" Both agreed, and with the sound of the bell, let the battle begin! Well guys, thank you so much for watching. I'm sorry it took so long to upload again, but now I have a lot of time to work. I'm in quarantine since all my country is now going crazy with the new virus, but oh well. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe for more what if videos, and don't forget to leave a comment down below with your ideas from the videos and talking about the videos. Also, don't forget to check my Discord, so that if you guys want to talk with me over there, you're all free to do it. My name's Kibo, and goodbye.